Good morning, everybody. Welcome to class this morning. It's snowing. Was it snowing last Saturday? It's been snowing a lot here, and it's April, but here we are. So maybe you can see the pretty snow in the background. It is pretty, especially if you're like in a place where it's not snowing. It's pretty to just see the snow. Scott and I are back for some more sense and balance. We did a couple weeks on the vestibular system, which is more the inner ear and how that relates to balance, and how you right yourself, find your kind of know where you are in space that way. And then today we thought we'd talk about vision. So I'll let Scott talk about sciencey things of vision if he wants to. He probably does. He likes to do that. And I will just say we all kind of know that vision is a part of balance. If you've ever done the experiment of like going up onto your toes and balancing with your eyes open or with your eyes closed, it can be a very big difference of how balanced you feel as you do that, or standing on one leg with your eyes open and then standing on one leg with your eyes closed. Another way, another little test people sometimes do is to come into like a balanced position and then turn your head. And there's a couple things that go on as you turn your head, but part of it too is like you lose that kind of locked vision. Um, so it's very interesting to play with like how your vision is kind of working in general, uh, and then how it's related to balance and how you can maybe find other things to help you balance if you don't have your vision to help you. Which sometimes we have less vision, right? Maybe it's nighttime, maybe vision is obscured for some reason. Um, so yeah. So I'm on a chair. You can be on a chair. You could do this on the floor, but I don't think it would be so great sitting on the floor unless you're super, super comfortable sitting on the floor. Um, so I'm on a chair and I'm at the front edge of the chair, which just puts me a little more like in my feet, a little more ready to go, as opposed to kind of leaning back. If it's uncomfortable, sit back in the chair. It's not a big deal. And we're going to start with the eyes. Now, there's a few different somatic um, techniques that work with eyes. Um, there's work with sensory integration that does work with vision. Um, and then I've done some work with Feldenkrais, and he would talk about vision and kind of like just where you place your eyes. And I'm sure there's others as well. Um, but thinking about some of those things, one of the things that can happen to people when you start doing vision work, they'll sometimes somatic practitioners will talk about the eye band. And just it's an idea that sometimes there's just a lot of tension all the way around. Like this is the eye band, all the way around the skull through the eyes. And sometimes that whole area feels very tense on the outside and the inside. Um, and so if I really push my eyes one direction, really push them the other direction, or really far up or really far down, sometimes like all that tension really starts to feel uncomfortable. So as you're working with the eyes and playing with different ways of, moving your eye around in its socket, just pay attention that it doesn't have to be just like when you're stretching your hamstring, you don't have to push it to the most range of motion, because that's going to tweak something else out typically when you do. Think of moving a little gently with the eyes. Um, the eyes, what you'll feel are muscles, but also the eyes are organs. And they are directly just sort of like nerve offshoots of the brain. They're like right in there in the brain. Um, so the back of the eye is kind of a powerful image as well, and how that directly relates to the back of the brain. And I'm getting a little sciencey, and Scott might be like, "No, that's old science, Collette." So he can come and correct me if that's true, but that's the science I remember. um, so yeah, we're just going to start with some of that information. Um, close your eyes, find your seat, close your eyes, and then maybe all of that information kind of swirling around in your head. Let's start with back of the eye. So if you think of the very back of your eye, even behind your sense of vision, and imagine relaxing in the back of your eye. Now, some people like to put their hands over their eyes to relax a little more. So you could cup your hands over your eyes if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and just leave my hands down. so that I don't have to work my arms. I can just relax all of it. Either way is fine. And then as you're relaxing the back of the eye, maybe you notice that area of eye band, right? So if you took a headband and just put it in front of your eyes, that circle that would go all the way around the back of your skull and the side of your head, you might visualize that. You might sense that from a felt standpoint. Just imagine all of that relaxing. And then sometimes I like the image too of letting my eyes drop a little back to the back of the socket in a really relaxed way. But there is a way the eye reaches out to find an image, but then that image draws back into the eye, into the back of the eye. So sometimes that relationship can be nice too. And with all this imagery, hopefully it creates more ease, right? Like a little ease in the neck, a little ease in the hips, maybe ease in the forehead. So if it starts to get tense, just kind of like maybe shake it out, look around a little. And then with your eyes closed, just start to kind of circle your eye around. And you might even imagine circling your eye around. It might, like, I'm not really sure if I'm moving my eye or not when I do this. I actually can't really tell for a number of complicated reasons. That makes sense. Um, but yeah, like really gently, really easily, like circle your eye to look up, to look to the side, to look down, to look back. But your eyes are closed, right? So you're not actually seeing anything different necessarily. But you could imagine looking at the top of your eye socket and the side of your eye socket and bottom. And then do a couple circles the other way. Super gentle. Imagined movement or real movement. Not sure. And then this one gets really abstract. Just let your eye come to center and imagine you could actually look out into the back of the eye. Now, don't imagine you're going to roll your eye all the way back, but just imagine you could look out the back of your head, right? We know moms have eyes in the back of their head. My mom always had eyes in the back of her head. We would always say that. She just know whenever we were doing something wrong. We were probably really noisy, but we thought she had eyes in the back of her head. So do it. Like look out the back of your head. What do you see behind you? And then just kind of settle back. And then softly let the eyes open. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of stuff that comes from Feldenkrais, leading the eyes, or the eyes leading you into a twist. So you're going to let your eyes look over to the right. And again, not pushing to a real hard, tense place, but just look a little bit towards the right corner. And then once you reach the end point with your eyes, keep leading with your eyes, but let your head turn. So you just keep looking around the corner, trying not to tense up. Your head follows what you're seeing around the corner, wherever that gets to. If you want, you could keep going a little farther. Let your rib cage move. And then let your eyes keep looking around the corner as your rib cage comes back, as your head starts to move back. And then let your eyes finish coming back to center. It's a strange coordination. And then take it the other way. Look, let them slide to the corner. And then you just keep wanting to see a little more. And you got to turn your head to do it, but your eyes keep reaching around the corner. And then let your spine follow, however is comfortable. And then this one's harder, I think, to like leave your eyes looking over to the left. You bring your spine back to center. And mine kind of jump around. Fine. All right. Now let's try version 2. I mean, you could do that a few times. We're just going to do a little sampling. Version 2, let your eyes and your skull move together. So the eye stays in the center and you just let your head move. But again, really seeing the horizon, but thinking that the eye stays sort of central. It's a little easier, but still my eye wants to jump around. I guess both my eyes want to jump around. Another way. And back to center. Yeah, I think that one feels easier. All right, now this is a weird one. You're gonna let your body start to move, but you're gonna leave your eyes forward. You can't even do it. So keep looking forward as your head starts to turn. Let's just do the head and then come back to center. So you're stabilizing the eye. I'm gonna look at the thing right in front of me, which is the camera. You maybe look at me, and I'm just gonna keep looking at it as my head turns. I believe they call this the side eye. You're gonna get really good side eye. You can do this. Let's do that one more time, just because we didn't go as far. And then relax and move everything around. Maybe yawn a little bit. And then we'll come up to standing. We'll move the chair off to the side. And then let's go back onto your back. And then take your hands together, do a little warm it up with the hands. And then let's do that little cupped hands over the eyes. So you're not pushing on your eye, you leave them a little cupped. And then just kind of breathe, let your eyes close and relax. And then with your hands still cupped over the eyes, open your eyes. Just kind of look at the darkness in the back of your hand, the palm of your hand. And let your eyes relax. And then keeping some of the relaxation as you take your hands away. And there's an image up there, but you're just like letting that image come to your eye. You're not reaching out with the eye. You keep that real relaxed back of the eye feeling, back of the head feeling. Maybe you add in a little vestibular relaxation, inner ear relaxation. Now, Kathy Grant used to teach a roll up where she'd talk about painting the wall with your eye, which is a couple different images, but they're sort of useful. But basically, the idea is you're going to roll up, you're going to start a roll up. We'll just go towards the crunch, towards the mini crunch, because you're looking, right? Just like we did twisting. So you're just going to like let your vision travel a little forward. And when it needs to, you're going to let your head lift. And then you're going to paint the wall, like looking all the way through down, maybe to the floor, and see where you get to. You might roll up, but you maybe just do the crunch. I just had rolled up. I said I wasn't going to. Let's go back down. So for me, when I do that, it's a really interesting thing. Like it makes it a little easier to roll up. But again, let's just do the mini crunch. So here you are, pretty easy vision. And then let your vision lead you. Let it start to move ahead. Try not to jump along the wall. I think that's the paint the wall thing. Like, don't miss a spot. And then don't miss a spot on the way down. Let's do that 2 more times. Breathe in and paint the wall, the ceiling first, the corner of the ceiling, and then the wall, and then all the way down till you're probably painting the floor there. And then try to paint it back up. One more time like this. And then relax everything. All right, now let's try from the sitting up position, right? So then, you can drop off whenever you need to drop off. So I'm going to find my spot on the wall. Now, again, I'm not going to hold on to it, right? If I can imagine that my eye just like, whew, there's an image and it just like came right to me, right? And let everything in the back of the eye stay really relaxed. And then as I roll down, I'm just going to keep letting my vision slowly lower down the wall, maybe about halfway down. And then I'm going to keep letting my vision like just float back up the wall. And that brings me up, right? Not very big. It was actually bigger when we did the mini crunch. This is kind of a small range. So playing with that. Easy, gentle eye muscles. And 2 more of those. Now notice the transition when you start to come up again. My tendency is to push my vision way forward. Can you keep that open, relaxed back of the eye as you come up? That keeps my head and neck a little more in place. My abdominals work a little more. And then relaxing as you come up to sitting. All right. How does that feel? Are you like, Colette, this is so weird? It doesn't feel like anything. That's okay if that's how it is. Maybe that's how it is. Or maybe you do feel that integration, right? So this is where sensory integration, this idea that like getting the senses to work and be in the body a little more, then it affects the whole body and how I organize my whole body. And if we think of the brain as a big nervous system or the hub of the nervous system, the senses are also very much a part of the nervous system, then how we see things, how we hear things, how we take in ideas or information has these direct correlations to like how we create tension or movement. So, it's a little brain dance today through there. So let's go into your hands and knees. And then take a moment on your hands and knees. And sometimes in this position, because my vision goes so far forward, once I get in this position, it makes my head want to drop down. I sometimes like to use that seeing out the back of my head image here. So I imagine the back of my eye opening up and seeing the ceiling. And I know what my ceiling looks like. So I just like imagine I actually see it. Like, oh yeah, there are those track lights. It's blue. There's the black in the middle of the track light. I let my imagination actually see out the back of my head, and I let that open up the back of my skull a little bit. And then I'm going to go back to what I see in front of me, which is my purple mat in my hands. I'm going to notice my peripheral vision a little more out on the floor, maybe a little bit the side of the wall, have some of that information. Paint with my gaze again. So I'm going to let my head go along the mat, along the floor, till I see the wall in front of me. I'm going to let my pelvis tip up till I'm in that cat position. And then I'm going to paint back down to the floor and let that bring me back to neutral. And then I'm going to let it bring me all the way. So I see my knees. I see through to my feet. I start to see up my shirt and back and forth. Taking in the central information, the stuff that's kind of in your central line of vision. And also maybe playing a little bit with what you see in your peripheral vision as you go. How do those two things differ in your body? What's more comfortable? Back and forth. And then just coming back to neutral, sit back over your heels. Take a stretch there. And then rolling up to sitting. All right, so let's give it a little bit of a break here. Let's give your vision a little bit of a break. Let's go back onto your back again. Close your eyes. Let your head release, your neck release. Let's take your right leg straight out on the floor, and your left leg in, holding the back of your thigh. And then as you bend your knee, eyes keep relaxing, and just keeping the eyes closed. Do something we've done a bunch, which is straightening and bending the knee. Inhale, reaching up, and exhale, bending. Easy, relaxed back of the eye. Sense of just kind of that darkness that you see when your eye is closed. We're going to leave your leg up. Take your hands away and by your side. Now, at any point, you could open your eyes and like check things out. If you find like, oh, this feels weird. I don't know where my body is in space. You can do that. But, it's kind of interesting to just kind of perceive it without the vision as well. Take some time to do that. Let's go into leg circles, reaching across your body and around and back up. Inhale across. Exhale around and up. 3 more. Inhale, reach. Exhale, circle around. Notice if you get tense up in your eyes or your neck. Let's try the reverse. And then take your leg down. Take your other leg in, back of the leg holding. Inhale, the leg reaches up. Exhale, it bends. Leaving the leg up, hold it there. Hands come by your side. You start your circle, reaching across your body. Exhale, around and back up to center. So if you have the right leg up, you're going to reach it over to the left first. And reverse it. Starting a little open, and then reach down, across, and back up. And relax your leg all the way down. Take a couple breaths here. And then opening your eyes. Bring yourself up to sitting. We're going to bring you all the way up to standing, however you like. Now, if you have a chair, kind of like I do, with a back on it, bring that back. You don't have to use the chair. You could use a place on the wall or something like that, or a counter or something if you have it. And you don't have to use it at all. But we're going to play with that experiment I was just talking about at the beginning of balancing with your eyes open, balancing with your eyes closed, and some of those things. So having the chair is just a little helpful. You can just lightly touch it. So I've got my feet in parallel. I'm pointing forward. And then I'm just going to really simply bend your knee, straighten your leg, and then rise up onto your toes and lower down. So get a feel for that first. Eyes open. Notice what that feels like. Relaxed eyes, but open eyes. One more like that. And then let's try the same thing. Eyes closed. And if you find that your balance feels really off with your eyes closed, maybe you just don't come up as much, right? You've got the chair there, something to balance with there to help you. But also you could just barely lift your heels or play with that range. If you find like, oh, I'm really good at this, right? Maybe you don't need the chair. That's all right. Good news. 3 of those bending. And then lower down and then open your eyes again. Now we're going to play with looking around. So bending and straightening and rising up. Hold that there. And then just really gently look around the room. Up, down, side to side. Maybe hitting some of that vestibular stuff again. And then lower down and bend and straighten and rising up, looking around. And lower down. One more time. This time, look around as you rise up, right? Just like maybe there's something slightly new in the room that you're going to find you haven't quite worked with. Lower the heels. You're still looking around. Bend your knee. Okay. And then lowering back down. All right. Lots of weird and wild stuff. I'm going to pass it over to Weird and Wild Scott Anderson. See what he does.
So it reminds me as a kid, I was a little kid, went on an Easter egg hunt, and I kept looking up. My father got so mad at me. He said, Easter eggs aren't in the trees. And my tendency was always to look up. And so when Collette was up on her toes looking up, it reminded me of looking for Easter eggs in the trees. So why don't we look for Easter eggs right in front of us? And begin with your feet wide apart. From your hip sockets, turn both legs out, including your feet. And then slowly bend ankles, hips, and knees. And then come on back up. So let's expand upon some of what you've already worked with. That when you come into triple flexion, ankles, knees, hips bending, then as a consequence, your torso leans forward. Then as you come up, torso returns to the vertical. Let your neck and head be a continuation of your torso. And now let your gaze track with your head position. So when you're up and vertical, looking straight ahead. When you're flexed and torso is at a diagonal, looking somewhat down and forward. So like you did earlier, let your gaze naturally follow your head position. One more. And then step your feet together. So by default, your nose points straight ahead, doesn't it? So best you can, keep your nose pointing straight ahead. Keep your head placed where it is. And now we're just going to turn the eyes, something you've done already. So let's begin going to your right, letting your eyes slowly pan to the right. Then back in toward the middle. Keep your nose where it is. Now pan your gaze gently to your left, back to the middle. All right, now let's put that into application. Step your feet wide apart. Turn your left foot in, then your right foot out. And then slowly bend that right knee and straighten it. Let's do a few like this. So you might be wondering, what does this have to do with balance? What does this have to do with the gaze? Not much. But it's really good for mobilizing your hips, your knee, and your ankles. The next time you're in the bent position, let's pause there. Then tilt your torso from the vertical to the diagonal. Let's go pretty deeply into the diagonal. Bring elbow to knee, hand to your hip. Take a moment here to settle into the diagonal, including your neck and head. And notice how your nose faces straight forward, straight ahead. Keep your nose facing forward. Let your gaze, just your gaze, slide toward the floor, back to the front. Eyes and nose face the same direction. Keep your nose facing this direction, and then take your gaze toward the ceiling. Back to the front. Again, gaze to the floor, just your gaze. Back to the front. And then your gaze to the ceiling, just your gaze. Back to the front. Then come on up and back to the front. Second side, turn your right foot in, left foot out. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. So you might be wondering, what's the point? Why would we do such a weird, bizarre, crazy thing and decouple the gaze from head position? Because your body is using three streams of information each moment, every moment, to gauge where you are in space. There's going to be your vestibular sense, your inner ear. There's going to be the pressure in your bones and joints, your proprioceptive sense, and then your visual sense. We want all three streams of information to work well. The next time your knee in the bent position, let's pause there. Take a moment to feel your feet on the floor. Spread your toes out. So that's going to be body sense, proprioception. Then tilt your torso from vertical to diagonal. So like we worked on preceding weeks, this challenges your vestibular sense, inner ear. But the unfortunate reality for almost all of us is we're highly visual dependent. And then if we lose our vision as we get older, the balance tends to take a significant hit. So keeping your torso in the diagonal, including neck and head, keeping your nose pointed straight forward, straight ahead like it is, and then slowly release your gaze down to the floor. Bring your gaze back forward. Slowly take your gaze up toward the ceiling. Back straight ahead. Without moving head and neck. Gaze to the floor. Without moving head and neck, gaze to the ceiling. Back to the middle. And come on up. So we're practicing using all the senses that contribute to an embodied sense of where your body is in space. So let's do some vestibular work again. Big, deep inhale, open your back. Exhale, arms up, chin up, gaze up. Inhale, fold. Roll your spine down. Exhale, gorilla, crown your head forward. And then inhale, step back. Head down, dog pose. We'll take a few breaths here. And then come on down to your knees. And then slowly lower down to your belly. This is really good for building arm, chest, shoulder strength. And bring your hands forward like we did the past couple of weeks. And starting with your elbows a little bent and a little lifted up off the floor. Then take your two hands, press them down, and lift your head and chest up. Letting your gaze follow your nose, turn your head to the right. Let your gaze follow your nose, turn your head back to the middle. Gaze following nose, turn to your left, and back to the middle. Now keep your nose where it is, and then move your gaze, just your gaze to the right, back to center, to the left, back to center, and then come on down, bring your hands by your armpits. Slowly push up, another good movement for strength building. And then back to head down dog. Let's take a few deeper breaths here. Direct the inhale into the region between your shoulder blades. Fill that space between your shoulder blades. And then with the exhale, step your feet up to your hands. Gorilla. Inhale, fold. Then exhale, roll up, roll your spine up. And then arms down. So one of the elements of vision related to aging is oftentimes our ability to focus or to shift focus tends to get kind of sluggish. So it's something that we can train, it's something we can practice. So let's start with left arm forward and hold your thumb out like you were hitchhiking. Then softly focus your gaze on your thumb and keep your gaze slightly focused as you bring your thumb in slowly, slowly. Now, especially those of us with a few years under our belt, inevitably you'll lose the focus on your thumb. Best you can maintain it. And let your eyes cross as you maintain that focus. Touch your thumb to your nose and slowly take it back out. Probably for a lot of us, right about here, it comes back into focus. Now, keeping your arm outstretched. Now softly relax the focus on the far distant wall. Then from the far distant wall, bring the focus back to your thumb and release that arm down. So all these muscles in the eyes that control focusing, and like a lot of other muscles in the body, as we get older, they often atrophy. So we have to work them. Now let's bring your other thumb up, lightly focus on your thumb, or best approximation of focus. Then toning those focusing muscles by slowly bringing your thumb in. Keep your gaze on your thumb even if you lose the focus. Slowly back out. For a lot of us, somewhere about here, it comes back into blurry or focus. And then from your thumb, let your gaze rest far distant. And softly back to your thumb. And back down. Alrighty. Maybe you can see this one coming, both thumbs. Bilateral hitchhiking. Join your thumbs and lightly rest your focus on your thumbs as you bring them both in. Both thumbs to your nose. Little cross-eyed thing going on. From your nose back out. Now, best you can, focus on both thumbs as you take them apart. Take your gaze, relax, and explore your periphery. Back in toward the middle. Let your gaze rest far distant as you release both arms down. So this quality of a soft gaze. Let's go back to side angle. Step your feet wide apart. Turn your left foot in, right foot out. Inhale into your upper back like we did in dog. Exhale, bend. Keep your knee bent. Inhale into your upper back. Exhale, tip your torso, not this far, not so far this time. Hand to knee, hand to hip. Settle into the diagonal. And bring your left arm forward and through. Overlay that arm onto the diagonal line. And the soft gaze, let it follow your head as you turn to look up at the ceiling. And now if you want a whole heck of a lot more challenge, close your eyes. Rely on your vestibular sense and your proprioceptive sense. and reduce your dependence on your visual sense. Inhale up, back to the front. How'd that go? The vast majority of people are really visual dependent, and they've kind of lost contact with the vestibular and proprioceptive. So doing these various techniques, like what Collette shared with you and what we're working on here, periodically taking your eyes out of it, can be really good for your balance. Let's take a look at the other side. Turn your right foot in, left foot out, right between your shoulder blades. Open with the inhale. Exhale, bend. Remember, take your knee beyond your heel. Keep your knee bent, big deep inhale. Exhale from vertical to diagonal. Overlay your right arm on that diagonal. And soft gaze as you turn your head to the ceiling. Hello, ceiling. Then if you want a whole heck of a lot more challenge, close your eyes. And inhale up, back to the middle, and step your feet together. Those of you who have done a lot of yoga, when you do balancing positions, ever had a teacher say, focus on a spot? It's basically a trick saying your eyes are really good at balancing and just use your eyes all the time. A better instruction, if you really want to work on your balance, is soften your gaze. Even better, close your eyes. Let's do a little vestibular diet right between your shoulders. Big deep inhale, fill. Exhale, arms up, sometimes called sensory diet, feeding your vestibular sense. Inhale, fold, soft gaze. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, stepping back. We'll take a few breaths here, right between your shoulder blades. Fill that space with fresh air. And then come on down and take a seat. So let's start with cross legs. If you find that your knees are really super high up, or you're sitting in the back seat, sit up on something. So letting your gaze track with your nose. Make little infinity signs with your nose. And then the other direction. Trace the infinity sign the opposite way. And back to the middle. So the neurophysiology is beyond the scope of what we have time for here. But in your brainstem, the interconnection between all these different capacities is really quite remarkable. So we have these nerves from the brainstem that go to control the movements of the eyes. The oculomotor, abducens, and the trochlear nerves emanate from the brainstem. They bypass the spine and they go directly to control the muscles that move your eyes. Those brainstem nuclei are interconnected with the brainstem nuclei that are related to your vestibular sense. And they, in turn, are related to the various muscles that control moving your head, such as your upper trapezius and your sternocleidomastoid. So deep in your brainstem, they're all having a conversation. So what's that mean for us? When you turn your head to the right, let's go ahead and do so, that automatically your eyes are going to move. And then come on back in toward the middle. And maybe you can feel that they go back and forth. That's called nystagmus. Now let's turn the other direction. So even with our very best intentions, full focus, don't be distracted by the cat's cuteness. Our gaze doesn't really follow the head. It's in a sense sort of doing an advanced search of where we're headed. But let's see if that's evident as you turn to the right. And this time let's turn a little bit farther. Bring your left arm across, right hand behind. And relax your gaze. Now to put a little bit of input into those brainstem nuclei, keep your nose where it is. Let your gaze return back to the front. Return your gaze to where your nose faces and back toward the middle. Motor, moving the body. Motor, moving the eyes. Inner ear vestibular sense. They're basically one interconnected system. And now turning your nose to the left. And notice how your eyes have a spontaneous movement. Sometimes leading, sometimes lagging. And then continue the twist. Bring your right arm across, left hand behind. Then keep your nose facing where it is. Let your gaze release back to the front where you came from. Then return your gaze to where your nose faces and back in toward the middle. So like you had a cord pulling up through the crown of your head. Maintain this lift, maintain this placement of your neck and head. And now release your gaze down to the floor, a movement we haven't done quite as much of. This is said to be calming to the nervous system. Without moving your nose, without moving your head, let your gaze return back to neutral. And then gaze up toward the ceiling. In a lot of meditation traditions, if you tend to be sleepy when you meditate, it's suggested that you lift the eyes up like we're doing right here to keep from falling asleep. And let your gaze release back toward the middle. And lastly, keeping your nose where it is, moving your eyes in a circle. So we're going to be toning all those many muscles to the left, down, to the right, up. Let's go one more that direction. So we're exercising all those muscles that control your eyes. Now the other direction, to your right, down, to your left, up, to your right, down, left, up, and release. So to summarize, this is an interconnected system, movement of your body, movement of your eyes, vestibular sense, and they're all the little inside the eye muscles that help control focus. And systems work best when they're utilized. And then in addition, we find that the various muscles that focus the eyes and control the eye's movements, like any other muscles, they tend to get weaker as we get older. So a little bit of exercise, a little bit of activity can be very supportive. So that's all I have to add to the conversation before we close for the day. Any comments or questions out there? Feeling a little nauseous is not unusual. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. That sometimes the nausea or the car sickness is when you're doing things with these interconnected systems that you're not used to. It'll pass really quickly. Thanks so much. Let's do it again.